I'm Joe Stewart, Vice President for Governmental Affairs of the Independent Insurance Agents of North Carolina. This video includes interviews with all three candidates running in the Republican primary for Insurance Commissioner of North Carolina. The questions were developed in consultation with the IIANC Board of Directors and the members of our Governmental Affairs Committee. We hope you find this informative and useful as you contemplate who to vote for in the coming election.
Well, if anyone checks the records, first off, I'm the only person on the ballot that has more than 4 years with an insurance license. I've been in the insurance business ever since graduating from college. Well, let's see, my first license was in the 1970s, and I've had an insurance license, virtually all the license department issues since then. I put 5 children through college selling insurance. I served 20 years in the North Carolina House, always on the insurance committee, 1 year even being invited to Washington, D.C. to be part of a national panel studying what to do about insurance. And of course, my position was keep it at state level. I don't want federal government involved in it. All of that time in the insurance business, I've never had a complaint filed against me. So I think I know the insurance business. I've got my CLU. I've done about everything you can do in the insurance industry.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. I'm Mike Causey, your insurance commissioner. I'm the 11th elected insurance commissioner in North Carolina since 1899. I was first elected in 2016 and re-elected in 2020. And I am running for re-election in 2024. I'm a native of North Carolina, born and raised on a dirt road produce farm. I still live on the same farm in the same house that my great-grandparents and grandfather and father lived in. And so I'm about 70 miles from my Raleigh office. And now the road's paved, and I'm actually situated between interstates 40 and 85. So my job is to try to save the farm from development, which is a very tough assignment these days. And I have it in a voluntary agriculture district. I've served on the Guilford County Agriculture Advisory Board for a number of years, the Guilford County Environmental Planning Commission, and been involved locally, not only in the Guilford County area, but for 12 years I was in the Charlotte area. I started my insurance career in Charlotte. My background was civil engineering, construction management. I have a degree in civil engineering technology and business administration. I have worked as a surveyor, consulting engineer, field engineer for general contractors. I'm a veteran of the United States Army, served overseas, military police in Army, also played in the Army band. And after I came home from the Army, I did work as a field engineer in North and South Carolina for a major general contractor. Went back to college at UNC Charlotte studying urban and environmental engineering, and got recruited by the largest life insurance company in the world at that time, Metropolitan Life. So I started out in Charlotte as an agent and did very well, qualified for their $1 million club the first year. And the next year, like many insurance companies do, they're trying to convince me to go into management. So I became a sales manager, and that was an eye-opener, and won numerous awards there. And later worked with some smaller insurance companies and became superintendent of agencies for Standard Life Insurance Company out of Jackson, Mississippi. So I have nearly 4 decades of insurance industry experience. And I'll have to say Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, MetLife, is really the reason I got into politics, because they really drilled into their agents to get involved in the community. They wanted their agents to join a civic organization, didn't care which one. They wanted their agents to be involved with political campaigns, regardless of party, just pick something and go help somebody. So I started out working with the mayor's race in Charlotte when a man then named Ed Peacock was running for mayor. And I still count Ed Peacock as a friend today. And so stayed in the insurance business over the years, moved back to Guilford County, had an insurance office here, had my own agency, and I've owned several small businesses. And the opportunities presented in the insurance industry have just been rewarding, and you get to travel places you probably wouldn't go if you weren't in the insurance business. So I've enjoyed my time, and I really had never thought about running until back in the 90s. I was asked to run. So I've run numerous times statewide. I've got to know the people of North Carolina. As superintendent of agencies, I traveled this state every day in all the counties. I had about 300 agents around North and South Carolina. But as insurance commissioner, I worked hard every day to work with the agents and with the legislators and listen to the consumers. And I believe we've accomplished a lot during my 2 terms, but there's still more work to be done. And I'd like to continue to serve the people.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak with you all. My name's Andrew Marcus. I'm running for insurance commissioner. I think it's time for a change and something that we need for our insurance industry in the state. My background is I'm a lawyer. Don't hold that against me, please. But I'm a former prosecutor. I started out as a prosecutor. I know how to enforce the laws. I know how to look at the case and build that and make sure people are compliant. I'm a former insurance regulator. I have actually regulated, been a part of the regulation of the insurance market. And then also after that, I moved into the private sector as a lawyer, and I've had the opportunity to work in-house for insurance and insurance adjacent entities, but also in private practice representing all types of parties in the insurance industry and all stakeholders, including agents and policyholders and small businesses, large businesses, insurance companies, TPAs, MGAs, any kind of alphabet soup of the insurance industry. I've had the ability to do that, as well as all lines of insurance. I've represented life and health and property and casualty, warranties, excess lines, reinsurance, and I have that ability to bring in the experience and perspective that we need in the industry to start on day one as an insurance commissioner. The one thing I want to stress is that I don't want to break a system, because the unknowing is going to be worse than doing it. But I want to take a look at how the system is working and make sure that we optimize and make sure that it's running in the best interest of North Carolina policyholders, as well as having a robust and competitive insurance industry. And specifically, for example, we had a round in 2018 of legislation that changed the way consent to rate works. And so it basically removed any kind of friction, and it made a lot of jobs easier and made life easier for like agents not having to go and collect the signed consent to rate form and instead getting a notice. But what's really, you have insurance companies who can now go 2.5 times the rate that's approved by the rate bureau, and we've seen as a result of that, the consented premiums, according to the Department of Insurance data, go from 2018 to 2022 or 2023. We've seen it go from 1 billion to 1.5 billion. So we've seen an increase in the amount of consented premium that's gone up as a result of that. And so we really have a system right now where the rate bureau and that system isn't as effective as it used to be. And the prior two commissioners. And we also don't have individual rate review for insurance companies. So I'd want to make sure that we choose and we go through a path that maybe brings more effectiveness back to the rate review process, and work with all parties, including the agents and insurance companies, but policyholders as well, to make sure we get some sort of effective review, because we now have companies who can essentially freely go up to 2.5 times that rate bureau amount, and do charge it and don't have that rate review for that excess premium. And so I'd really like to bring more effectiveness back to the rate review process for the rate bureau. But in general, it's a process that has been working historically, and so we want to make sure not to negatively impact the market.
I will state the way I understand it. Under the rate bureau model, the insurance companies in the rate bureau present a rate to the commissioner. That rate is what the insurance companies propose as the maximum rate to be charged in the state of North Carolina. They can charge anything under that. The commissioner's job is either approve that rate or reject it. And if he rejects it, they can come back with another offer. Or they can take it to court, as they've done now. In my humble opinion, the current situation, very political. He didn't turn down the rates until 3 weeks before the primary, and he set the court date right before the November election. A nice stand to let the commissioner look like he's controlling things, and he does control what the rate bureau rate is until the courts make a decision. However, in 2018, he worked with the legislature to change what's called the consent to rate. Now there is a disclosure in each policy. I doubt very many people read it, but there's a disclosure in each policy that says if the insurance company bills you more than the rate bureau rate and you pay it, you can be charged up to 2.5 times whatever the rate bureau rate is. The rate bureau itself estimates that 89% of the people in North Carolina are already paying more than the rate bureau rates. So what good is the commissioner's discussion about the rate bureau at this point? What would I do about cleaning up the mess so that the commissioner actually has some input into what the rates are? I would either go back to the pre-2018 status where the companies had, and I've talked to some former presidents of insurance companies, they hated that system and they don't make any bones about it. But go back to the 2018, pre-2018 status where the companies had to make an explanation of why you would go above the rate bureau rates, and the commissioner had to approve it, and the customer had to sign a paper that they understood and agreed to pay above rate bureau rates. That I would either do that, or I would go in the other direction and ask the legislature, hey, let's get rid of all this stuff that really, at this point, except for the 2.5 times, there's no limit on what the companies can charge. And they easily exceed the rate bureau rate. Since that went into place in 2019, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners says that what the people in North Carolina pay, we've gone from 4th lowest to 19th lowest in the nation. The rate bureau rates haven't gone up that much, but what people pay has.
I think there's certainly room for discussion, because I'm out there talking with the agents on a regular basis. And I will tell you that the insurance industry is divided on their opinion. I've talked to a number of agents across this state that believe we should do away with the rate bureau and have a totally free market system. I have talked with other agents that disagree with that. And I know that we've had this discussion in the past, but we have done a lot at the Department of Insurance to allow insurance companies more free market reign to do things over and above the rate bureau. And I think that I'm open I'm not saying that I'm here to do away with anything, because our system has worked pretty well. It's provided a healthy and stable insurance market. We're in much better shape than many of our neighboring states, but I think there's still room for improvement in finding ways to attract more insurance companies to do business in North Carolina, particularly recruiting companies willing to write homeowners in the eastern part of the state. A lot of complaints about that. I talked with an agent in Rowan County the other day, and he said, I can have a policyholder that's had a safe driving record for 28 years, and all of a sudden they have an accident and get those points, and I've got to increase their premium by $1,000, and it's not right. So I hear what the agents are saying, and I think that we tried something. Really, my first year as commissioner, we had a bill to reduce the population in the reinsurance facility, and pardon me, I thought, well, this won't be hard, because we're not saying don't put any business there. We're just saying for those companies that are putting 100% of their business in the facility, let's, going forward, cut that back 5% over 1 year. And then the next second year, another 5%. And I was really surprised that met with resistance. And I had companies that said they didn't want it. Even though some of them said, well, we're not putting 100% of our business there anyway. So I don't know the answer, but I think that's a matter that needs to continue in these legislative discussions to see what can the legislators can come up with, where they can get a consensus from the insurance industry.
The reinsurance facility, and I've called all these folks, the reinsurance facility, we do have some challenges there that I think the General Assembly is fairly looking at. However, I would like to give you 4 examples of why I think we need to look very seriously at this and make sure we've got all the facts together before we do anything about the reinsurance facility. This is from an agent here in Mooresville. 3 drivers, 17 years, clean record, and they've been with the same company all this time. They get a bill for $2,100 to renew their insurance. By seeding it, putting them into the reinsurance facility, they have this. The agent worked it out. They ultimately wind up with the same coverage, but they're only paying $1,300. One driver, 5 years, clean record, preferred rates, was billed $1,100. By putting it in the facility, they worked it out, $721. 2 drivers over 55 years of age, 24 years, clean driving, preferred rates, 24 years, 55 years old. They were billed $1,306. By putting them in the facility, they wound up getting the coverage for $886. One driver, 5 years, preferred, billed $1,459. Put in a facility, they got the same coverage for $851. Now they have to work at it because the facility doesn't write all the same coverage, but the rates in the facility were low enough that giving them everything, all the coverage, every one of them saved money. So the reinsurance facility, while it may have problems, why can it set rates that are lower than what these clean drivers are being billed? To me, that's one question we've got to answer. Why can they set rates so that a safe driver with 24 years clean record can go in the facility and come up cheaper than not? Especially when you look at, let's go back, January 25th, 2024, Wall Street Journal, headlines, Traveler reports record profits. Allstate, stock up 50% based on rate increases. Or we look at the National Association of Insurance Agents. Over the last 10 years, nationwide, insurance company profits have averaged 3.6%. In North Carolina, the average is 7.2% in profits. Our reinsurance facility may have problems, but somebody has to answer why. How can the reinsurance facility operate with so much better rates than the preferred market in what we're doing? We've got to look at the entire rate structure. There's so much, things have been twisted so much, and I think it's because, I'm sorry, I think it's because our current commissioner does not understand insurance, and everything is so convoluted. It's upside down when you can be seated and pay less than you do as a preferred customer.
It's a bit of an antiquated system, but I want to make sure. But on the other hand, we do have some of the lower rates in the nation for our auto insurance. So it's not something, if it's not very broken, don't go ahead and try to fix it. Don't be solution seeking a problem. However, there are some, I think, optimizations and fixes that we can go and do. And out on the campaign trail, I've heard some other stories as well regarding the use of it. But in general, I want to make sure that we don't fix what's already working. Now, I think we're fourth or fifth in the nation in auto insurance rates. I'd like to see us go to 1 or 2, but I also want to make sure we don't go to 8 or 9 or worse. So I want to make sure that we don't break a system that has been historically working. On the other hand, I think that there's some things that we need to look into as the department, as I would as commissioner. I've heard stories about consumers not knowing why they're being placed, not thinking that they have any kind of convictions on their record. So I want to make sure that we have full transparency around how insurance companies are placing people and insureds in the facility. I also want to make sure that we don't see too much of good drivers subsidizing bad drivers. So when you have the facility run at a deficit, I don't want to see good drivers really subsidizing those people in the facility, the worst drivers, and making sure that they aren't paying into it too much. Again, I don't want to break the system, but I want to make sure that we're optimizing it, doing what's fair, and then also making sure that we push towards that 1 or 2 and the lowest costs of auto insurance in the country.
Private insurance, and that is something I would have to talk to the insurances about, the legislature about, because there are some ideas that I have received that I'm looking at some of the states that have other programs. I've called, there are a couple of organizations that claim to be consumer oriented, and they have made proposals on things that can be done with the flood insurance program. And basically, I can't say what I would do because I'm still collecting information, because it is such a problem in North Carolina. And we don't seem to have done much about it except, oh yeah, it's a problem. I've asked people that I think know a lot more than I do for some solutions. That's the best I can come up with, sir.
I would say that's one. I think we need to really increase consumer awareness of it. I think that as a commissioner, you're also, in addition to just somebody who sits and takes in and accepts a regulatory rate filing, you're also somebody who's going to go out and have to advocate and push for a consumer friendly, but also robust and healthy insurance market. And one of those things is increasing the adoption of flood insurance. I think going to flood prone areas and making people aware of, even if you're not in a flood zone, you're not required by your lender to go get flood insurance, that you should really consider it. You should consider adopting it, because if you're in a flood prone area and you're not in a flood zone, you're still kind of in a flood zone. You're still at a higher propensity to get to get those claims and get a flood, and that's disastrous for everybody. And so I really want to make sure that we go out and push increased awareness of it and make sure that we try to increase adoption. I think also I previously in the private sector, I've represented clients and that are private insurers who are adopting and trying to move into the private flood insurance market in other states where they've adopted it. I want to look at those states and make sure that our lines align with them where we have seen some pickup in private flood insurance, where we have seen that adoption by the private carriers and private market, because I think that any kind of competition in the market is going to help and increase the experience for consumers and agents and just the North Carolina market in general. And also, I would say that I'd like to see some transparency from the NFIP and FEMA. They had risk rating 2.0, risk 2.0. In 2021 is when they started to promulgate that. And they really were not transparent. Again, I had some clients at the time who were dealing with that and were administering that business. And we did not get any kind of transparency as far as how they set the rates. And it hit the southern states a little bit worse than it did anywhere else when they recalibrated, as they say, those rates. It increased rates more likely in North Carolina and some of the other southern states than it did lower them. And so I want to get the transparency as far as how they set those rates, make sure that they're really setting those rates based on risk and risk alone. And so I think there's a lawsuit going on that was filed last year by some of the other states like Florida and South Carolina and Mississippi. And I would want to make sure that we as a state join that as well to demand the transparency from FEMA and the NFIP. And our current commissioner has not said anything or done anything as a result of this. And we need to push for that for the North Carolina market.
2018, when Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina, we had 23 southeastern counties that were underwater. Now, I went to every one of those 23 counties. In fact, it was the Big I, the independent insurance agents. You all had given us a grant. We were able to get a motorhome and get it converted to a command vehicle, a victims assistance center that we took out there. We set up insurance camps with other major insurance companies, and we were out there in multiple counties alongside of FEMA. We were helping people whether they had insurance or not. But one thing that we found out from the joint underwriters was that very few people had flood insurance. And I believe it was around 88,000 homeowners in southeastern North Carolina lost their homes, lost everything they own, and they had no insurance because the homeowners doesn't cover floods. So we launched a program right then, these flood classes, working with Gina Hardy, Charlotte Hicks, and some of these other experts, that we went around the state. It started out giving continuing education credits to insurance agents. That was later expanded to realtors, architects, surveyors, some engineers. And we started working right then with the Rate Bureau. And for 2 years, we worked with the Rate Bureau on developing plans for private flood insurance. They hired consultants to do studies, and they mapped this state. I was told by the consultants they had North Carolina mapped into 144 million different sections. They could tell which section in your yard is flood prone or flood area. So we did get the forms approved. We were on the track to get private flood insurance going quickly, and COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, it just slowed everything down, put some things to a standstill. But we do have some private flood insurance available now. We still encourage people, if they don't have flood insurance, to get it either through private carriers or the federal flood insurance program. And the good news about that initiative that we launched after 2018 was we have about 25% more homeowners today with flood insurance than we had back in 2018. So I think we need to continue that. I thank the insurance agents in North Carolina for promoting it. I know a lot of them do in their offices, have the little pamphlets and put things out to their policyholders. So we need to keep working on that. I would like to make some improvements. We've we've relied on the Pearson VUE for the testing. Years ago, the testing used to be done at the Department of Insurance, and I've heard some issues from some people about some people were having difficulties with the manual and the study. So I think we need to take a look at it, and the things that are working well, don't change it. But if there's something that's causing issues and not working well, then we do need to make changes to those areas to make us smoother, better. But we don't want just anybody to have an insurance license, of course, but you don't want to make it too difficult that makes it harder to recruit the agents that we all would like to have.
I do know of some cases, and it's not necessarily the direct selling agents licenses, but some of the licenses that are issued by the Department of Insurance with very specific requirements in the statutes. You've got hundreds of people that have a license that have never taken the exams or completed the coursework. To me, the first thing I would do as far as licensing go is make sure everybody's playing under the same set of regulations, because it's just not fair. One group is operating, they don't even take the exam or anything. So how do you know how much they know when they've got their license out there? I do know some people, in the bail bonding industry, the licensing there are some people that there's no way they qualify for a bail bond license, and yet they have a license. And yes, I know the people, I know what I'm talking about. The bail bond industry, the corrupt people are really giving the bail bonding industry a bad name. And basically the biggest thing I would do is enforce the regulations on the books and then see if we do have a problem.
I'll say that your Insure Academy has done a good job at modernizing things and providing that opportunity for agents. But I'd also, I want to make sure that agents are properly educated and make sure that they really adhere to the standards that are nationally required, and that they can best serve consumers. But I'm very interested in making sure that it's a modernized system, because we need to make sure that it's available to everybody in order to increase the opportunities in North Carolina for agents specifically. I think they're great jobs and we need to get more of it. We have hiring challenges as it is in the market. I want to make sure that we're adopting these, and maybe the risk management programs that we have in the state, the 4 or 5 that we have and are growing in the state, and making sure that we're building that into the system as we try to create that talent pipeline for agents in the state, as well as industry or insurance companies, making sure that we have a good, robust talent system to keep it here in North Carolina. And so I try to advocate for that.
Joe, I've just started touching really the surface of that. One of the things that you asked earlier about the flood insurance, the FAIR Plan, the whole issue of the rates, and the real issue on the coast right now is it's the whole concept of insurance. Should you only pay a premium for the risk that are associated with what we know about Joe? Or should your premium be associated with the fact that you and I are about the same size, we look alike, and although we live in different parts of the world, do we pay the same thing?
Jan Wright.
I'm sorry, I should have turned this thing off. Do we pay the same thing? So
you want to start over so that you don't have that in the segment?
Well, it's the whole issue is, how do you determine how should insurance really function? Is it a totally sharing of risk, or do you take the risk as based on what we know about Joe and what the risk he takes, or do we share that because everybody that looks like Joe ought to pay the same thing, or everybody that was born in 1962 ought to be charged the same? The same thing applies, with rain and we've got to find out how all of that fits together. And I've talked to some people that are actuaries, and I confess, I think they know more than I do about how to answer that question. So I'm looking forward to them to give me some answers. The other thing that when we're talking about this, and you talk about, especially when you use the word world, one of the things that's really helped us immensely is insurance companies that we know of when we're going to buy our insurance. They also buy insurance, and their reinsurance people, they deal in much bigger numbers. Like one insurance company I talked to, they pay $100 million a year for reinsurance, and that $100 million protects them in case of a catastrophe. It'll protect them up to $500 million. So they're paying 20%. They're paying 20% of the risk just to have a protection, and they have, with the weather and everything has come, they have had to use that reinsurance. Well, they can report on their books they had a $600 million loss, but they paid the $100 million premium plus the $100 million deductible. And so they were only out $200 million. They didn't have to pay the whole $600 million. But the reinsurance facility says, oh man, we just paid out $500 million. We're going to raise our rates too. So it's the answer is not a simple answer, because you got to get in there and find out how big are these factors. And obviously these reinsurance facilities, most of them are not United States companies, it seems like, from what I'm running into. So we've got to look at the dollar exchange rate. There's so much involved in the dollar exchange rate, what our relationship is with the people. Are we going to be able to enforce the reinsurance? What's really happening? What are the weather patterns? I looked at the 20% when they started to tell me there's a 20% cost on the reinsurance. Let's say we're buying a reinsurance policy for $500 million and we're paying $100 million. In my mind, how are you going to make, well, why would an insurance policy be worth 20 million, be worth 20%? Because we complain, currently our insurance rates are what, 2, maybe 3% of whatever we're insuring, and here they are paying 20%. Well, if they're insuring against a hurricane, look at our coastline. We have a bad hurricane, about every 10 years, right? I think if we go back and check, we have a bad hurricane every 10 years, so we have a big loss. Well, then the insurance company that's getting 20%, yes, 500 million is a lot of money, but if they pay 500 million out once every 10 years and they collect 20% over a 10-year period, they still come out pretty good. So you got the time factor involved in it also. Bottom line, it's again, I don't claim to have a magic wand. I don't claim to know everything, but I I do claim to know people that I think do have some of the answers, and we've got plenty of experiences. We've got other states that have a much worse hurricane problem than we do. We can see how they address it. I keep hearing about all the companies pulling out of Florida. I looked it up yesterday. Based on what I found, since 2017, 11 companies have pulled out of Florida. All of them were small companies, and 6 of those small companies were put out of business because they didn't have a good business plan to start with. So there's so much goes into trying to make a decision as to what you would do about it. The flood insurance, how much do you want the government involved in it? Most of the insurance agents I know are free enterprise. They don't like Obamacare. I don't like Obamacare. Since I mentioned that, one of the things I'll be working on is trying to get the federal government to put the health insurance plans back in control of the states. Right now, the federal government controls everything in the health insurance industry. And when you talk about getting to what can be done, having the government set up a fund, a safety net fund, so that when you did have a disaster on the coast, the government comes in and pays. Well, do you want the government involved that much? Again, you're spreading the risk across the state when you do that, which may be the fair way to go. But it's something that I would want to get some people more knowledgeable than me together to look at.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Well, one, I think the beach plan has done a good job in the challenging environment, making sure that they've responded well to catastrophes and done a good job for the citizens. I think that they have a couple of good programs too that I would look at adopting. The Strengthen Your Roof program that they have. I'd like to maybe try to push to increase it and increase it more throughout the state, or at least the coast as well, maybe to non-beach plan members and the private carriers, making sure that we the stronger and more resilient our insured properties are, the less the cost of claims, and that ultimately helps everybody in the state. But we do, as you pointed out, there are a lot of challenges in this market, and things seem to be getting worse, and will probably continue to get worse. We have inflation. There are just things that are immovable that a North Carolina commissioner can't necessarily do anything about. You have inflation. You have the cost of claims, and the cost of new construction and property, the cost of cars and electric vehicles are more costly to insure. And so there's a lot of things that are outside of the Department of Insurance control, but there are things that the Department of Insurance can do, and the commissioner should be doing as an advocate for that robust system, and advocate for consumers in North Carolina, but also having that healthy market, making sure you're going out and ceaselessly recruiting companies to come and write in the state, and going out and pushing them to do that, and seeing what the prohibitions are and why companies aren't coming in, and trying to fix that with the legislator, with a functional relationship with the legislature. You have also, I'd want to, as a person who has worked very in deal and in depth on reinsurance and worked and represented clients in the reinsurance market, I'd want to really focus on that, because that is as you pointed out, a large part of the rate increases. But I think North Carolina should be taking the lead on things and going to the NAIC and being part of the reinsurance group and working groups on those things, to make sure that we as North Carolinians are getting the best parts of that, making sure that we are not subsidizing anybody else to the point that we can. And also, a commissioner should also be pushing for innovation just all the time, and looking for solutions, looking what's working in other states. According to the Wall Street Journal, Alabama's homeowners insurance and dwelling insurance program over the last 4 or 5 years their average premiums have gone down. And so, like, what is Alabama doing to help on those things, and looking at other states to see what is working, and then pushing and working with the legislature, having a functional relationship with the legislature in order to push programs that are going to ultimately mitigate the impact of these systemic problems that we just discussed, and make sure that the cost of insurance is not rising unnecessarily.
Start with, the Beach Plan has done an outstanding job. They've maintained great financial health and solvency, and the legislature should continue doing everything they can to help the Beach Plan and the FAIR Plan. We have increased the coverage amounts, which has been helpful. One thing I think has been very helpful is the fortified roof program that the Department of Insurance has worked closely with the Joint Underwriters Association on that program. And we need to make more homeowners in coastal counties aware of the fortified roof program, other programs to strengthen their house and their structures to withstand stronger winds and more storms. That would be a help. And then educating the public. We don't need to build in flood zones. We all want the growth, but we want to have well thought areas and planned, and not rebuild somewhere where it's going to flood in a few years. But it is a tough market. I think if you look at what's happening around the country, we're still in much better shape than most of the other states. I would like to see, and I told this to the Council of State meeting this week, that we need everybody from the governor and the legislature, Council of State, insurance companies, all working together to come up with ways to incentivize and recruit more insurance companies to North Carolina willing to write homeowners coverage, particularly in the 20 coastal counties in the state. So I think that my job is as commissioners to make sure the companies maintain that financial solvency, but at the same time, when they're asking for increases like we saw with this last rate filing, that gets a tremendous public reaction. As we heard from elected officials, Home Builders Association, retirees associations, counties, city councils, everybody weighed in on this one. And so, that's why I said no to that rate filing. I set the court date, the hearing date, for October 7th, and we'll see where it goes. But I know that I had one lady tell me, well, insurance companies need nothing, zero. They don't deserve a penny. And I said, well, if they choose not to write business anymore, and you'd have no insurance company that's willing to write insurance coverage, what are you going to do? So, people need to think about all sides, and I think we can get there, but it's a tough job ahead of us to find that balance.
Thanks so much, Ed. Joe, as I've said before, I think agents play a really pivotal role in the insurance market, and especially should be a partner with the regulator. Agents are the first ones to hear about a problem or some sort of systemic issue from policyholders. Policyholders are way more likely to call their agent and complain than they are to contact the regulator. And so I want to make sure that there's a good relationship and working relationship with the agents. And then also agents understand how the business works. And so they're very familiar with the issues. And so I think the agents community serves a really important role. Again, my name is Andrew Marcus. I'm running for insurance commissioner. I just think we need a change. So if you please, I hope everybody will go to marcusfornc.com, MARCUS for NC.com, and look at me and vote for me on March 5th.
Honor and privilege for me to serve you as insurance commissioner and state fire marshal for the past 7.5 years. And we've accomplished a lot in the past 7.5 years. The first month I was in office, I sat down with our criminal investigation division. I found out that the Department of Insurance was really struggling to fully investigate the massive amount of insurance fraud that takes place in North Carolina. They were getting in 5,000 to 6,000 criminal complaints a year, majority from insurance companies, but only had the sworn law enforcement officers to fully investigate 12%. So that was 88% of thousands of fraud referrals not being fully investigated. So I went on a mission to persuade the legislature to grant us more positions. We tripled the number of criminal investigators from 20 to 60. We had the same issue with fire department safety inspections, the ISO inspections. In 2017, I ran a report, and out of the 1,200 plus fire departments inspected by the Department of Insurance and Office of State Fire Marshal, 2/3 had not been inspected in a timely manner. We had fire departments that hadn't been inspected 20 to 25 years. One in Craven County had been 28 years since the last ISO class inspection. And that's important because how your fire department's rated impacts what you pay for homeowners. So I asked what the problem was. They said, well, we only have 5 inspectors to cover 100 counties. And I said, wouldn't it help if we hired some more? And they said, yes. So we hired 3 more fire department inspectors, 2 former fire chiefs, 1 former county fire marshal. We went from 5 to 8 in November 2017. We eliminated the backlog. And today, in 2024, 80% of the fire departments that this office inspects have upgraded, lowered, improved their ISO class rating. In 2017, we had 6 Class 1 fire departments in the state. Today, we have 32 Class 1s, and that has saved these homeowners in those fire districts and the businesses millions and millions of dollars. We have had a record year in 2023 on insurance fraud arrests, 505 arrests, almost half of those resulting in convictions last year. The others are pending in court cases. I set up a legal prosecution division in 2017, which had never been done before at the Department of Insurance. We have experienced prosecuting attorneys that work for the Department of Insurance, that work with our district attorneys, and that really turned the tide on prosecuting these insurance fraud cases. I've gone after insurance fraud, white collar crime. I worked undercover with the FBI for 2 years to go after this, the offender, Greg Lindbergh. I can't talk about specifics of the case because I have to go back to court, federal court this year for a retrial on May 6th. So that's coming up. But I have stood strong for the people of this state while at the same time listening to the insurance companies. I believe I have a good working relationship with the insurance companies, the independent insurance agents, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, even though I have disagreed. And I've stood up publicly when I have disagreed, and I will continue to do so. But I ask for your support and your vote to continue what we've started over the past 8 years. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I deserve to be your insurance commissioner because I have, as I said in the beginning, I'm the only candidate on the ballot that's had an insurance license for more than 4 years. I've had a lifetime in the insurance business, a lifetime of experience in the insurance business from top to bottom. And I know about there's so much fraud going on in the industry right now that's not being addressed. Right here in Mooresville, over $1 million on one agent. All the records are in, nothing's being done. In Pitt County, $10,000 home was taken by a bail bondsman and nothing done. I'm sorry, for $10,000 bail bond, the bail bondsman took a home and that's totally illegal. Nothing was done about it. If I'm elected your insurance commissioner, I will address the Department of Insurance basically the same way I've lived my life in trying to get things done. I was graduated from NC State, where I was captain of the wrestling team. I was a cheerleader. I also retired as a military commander. And I think what we need in the Department of Insurance right now is somebody with a background like that that's willing to take names, kick butt, and cheer about it.